Richards trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease.
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Street Bullies podcast with your hosts, Derek.
How you gonna get it, brother?
John. Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Cody.
What's not to love?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the official small sample size season of the Philadelphia Flyers. I am John Gove, and I am here with my two boys. Matt, what's up?
Hey, the restraining order has been lifted. Casey and Hoagie are in the same room at the same time. 200 miles apart.
Goddamn miracle.
Instead, we got rid of Derek.
We cannot have the full Monty in here.
We just etched out a name. We were like, let's get rid of Hoagie. We'll just put Derek on there and then resend it to the police.
Not everybody can handle Voltron on a week-to-week basis, boys. You gotta keep one piece out.
He might make an appearance, but we'll see.
Yeah, one can
I
only
heard
hope.
it worked wonders last week, so I can't
it was
wait.
great. It was great.
Hmm.
Nothing like the soothing sounds of behind in the background.
Thanks, Derek.
What a bold move. Be like, hey, I had a kid 3 days ago, but I'm going to hop on a podcast.
He was trying.
I'm not really sure I would call what last week was a podcast. It's more of like a try at a podcast.
All over the place.
Anyway.
How are you doing, John? How are you feeling?
Not well.
Tell me.
Why? You're going to make me relive this? I mean, I'm an Eagles fan, and I live with a Jet fan. Well, I'm married to a Jet fan, and then I have Jet fans in the basement also.
Like rats.
And let's just say no one was expecting this Eagles-Jets game to go the way it did, and the football fans that never talk are like, oh, yeah, J-E-T, go F yourselves.
Now, were you walking around like the cock of the walk all day, being like,
I don't
this game?
No, I don't trash talk ever. I've never been, because I'm always expecting my team to lose. So
fair.
I'm never like, gloating or anything like that. Ever, actually, even when my teams are good.
I think so, you're a Notre Dame fan, and
Yes.
obviously you had a good night last night, which is good.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about this. So yesterday was weekend 6 of rain, and so, having two kids in the a monsoon for the 5th weekend in a row, you're just like, oh, just get a little bit of soccer in. But I was like, you know what? The Flyers are playing in the afternoon. Right. And then I'm a huge University of Miami fan. I'm like, Miami's playing. We had a bit of a hiccup against Georgia Tech, but okay. And I'm like, I can't tie my life to games anymore because I was like, I'm such a disaster because my teams suck.
Yeah, no, it's so bad. I mean, Notre Dame had a great win yesterday, but after 2 losses, it's like you can only enjoy the win so much, knowing that in this current format, there's really no future for you. And now, you get the Flyers, which obviously we're going to dive into more. And the Eagles have just lost one game, but I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do for the rest of the year? Who am I going to root for?
And the worst is, yeah, there you go. You got the Phillies. Are you a Phillies fan, John?
No.
Hoagie, no. You're a big Phillies fan, right?
Yeah, 3 for
You're
3.
a big Phillies fan. You're not a
I've been watching them.
Yeah, sure.
No, I watched them all season.
You're like a Jets version of a Phillies fan.
Anyway.
Shut up.
Apparently on what is it, Tuesday night on the home opener, what they have a soccer match going on, the Phillies game going on. It's gonna be bad news.
Yeah, so that's why it's on at 6:00. But before we jump ahead, should we get into some Flyers talk?
Hey, we got some talk to get into. Let's do it.
We got some talk to get into. Actual game talk. Yeah, so we opened up the season Thursday night. Nice 4-2 win against Columbus. Then that bit of back to reality game. I think everybody was feeling pretty good on Thursday or Friday morning. And then the back to reality game on Saturday where we weren't looking so good, 5-2 against the Senators. We're not going to spend time breaking down each game individually because there are podcasts for that. And it just doesn't make sense for us to do a weekly podcast. So I think we're just going to chunk it all together. Casey, what was something good you took away from these two games?
I think good is the pressure testing of Couturier and Atkinson. Both of them, Couturier in particular, getting heavy minutes in both games. I think he was 20 plus in both games. Atkinson, I'm not sure, but he was right around there. It doesn't seem like they're Torts is phasing them in, like, oh, we're gonna limit them to 13 minutes, 18 minutes, that kind of stuff. Right. It's like, hey, it's an all situations kind of thing. That 2-on-0 with Farabee and Couturier against the Blue Jackets was a thing of beauty. That was awesome. I'm glad one of them shot. Like, that's not something we've seen in the last 3 years that one of them shoots on a 2-on-0. But if I'm looking at the positives, and again, like, we're 1-1, like, let's not freak out one way or get too pumped one way.
80 more games left.
Right. It's that those two players, okay, they have seemed to gone over the hump from an injury standpoint, and I'm knocking on wood in a huge way here because, we haven't even made it home yet. So that's positive.
What? Yeah, Hoagie, what about you, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, positives. The slam dunk there is Couturier and Atkinson. They look good. They're contributing. They're playing the minutes. I also like seeing the young guys. They're chipping in. They're getting revolved around the lineup and taking their chances and slots. Cam York had a thing of beauty goal against Ottawa on Saturday. So it's just those little things that kind of make you excited that they're on build on as their career grows for the young kids at least.
Yeah, and I think I kind of want to pause on this good conversation for a second and take a side road because this was something we were talking about a little bit in the group chat where it was like this flopping of young players where it was game one, you had Brink and Zamula, right? And the next game you had Forster and Attard. Am I correct?
No, Attard's in AHL.
And
not Zamula, Andre.
Andre, yeah.
That's what I meant to say. Not Attard, Andre, the other
his game was pretty I'm not gonna lie.
And it's like, whatever you want to call it. I mean, load management's not the word because it's not like you're trying to protect these guys, but it's like there's this flop going on where you're trying to figure out, who's going to stick. And I'm curious what your thoughts on is this. I don't know, Casey, I'll start with you. Do you feel like Torts is just going to keep going like game in, game out until one of them kind of earns a little bit more?
Yeah, I think so. I'll be totally honest. I think that Brink had a little bit more impact in the game he was in. Now, I do want to take competition into consideration there.
Right.
Where Columbus, while they may have Johnny Hockey, they may have, the defenseman formerly known as Ivan Provorov, on their team, they have a little bit of star power. Ottawa was a different level. Ottawa basically took us to the woodshed, and we were lucky to be there even at the end of the second period. But it was that end of the second, beginning of the third that things just went off. But long-winded way, I think Brink is actually providing a little bit more spark. Now, can he do that long-term? That remains to be seen. Having met Bobby Brink, humble brag, I think he is a little dude. Like, he is small. He's not ripped. Forster, who I also met, is a big guy. I'm not seeing the spark that Forster provided when he came up last year. And I know it's a different scenario. If I'm doing a little bit of prediction, I think they're going to ride Brink a little bit more and let him go with the skill. And I think Forster may be the odd man out for a little bit. Not to say he won't get called back up, but that's my kind of prediction right now.
Yeah, and before I get to the dude who just hopped in on the show and thinking he can
get 8 minutes. Yeah, blame me for having 2 kids.
You're talking to 2 dudes who have 2 kids.
Yeah, how old are they? A little more self-sufficient, I think. Casey, just real quick,
doesn't he sound like one of those like people on the news?
You're talking about Bobby Brink here for a second. I just want to rewind. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. What What did
I'm
you
so
did you
tired.
happen to
I-
mention
I-
what you mentioned to us to Bobby when you met him
is
in
he gonna
person?
be doing this for the next
I
2
will
months?
own it. I said I
2
haven't
years.
seen anything from Bobby Brink to really make an opinion that he should be on this team. Now, I think that changed in that Boston preseason game. I think he was a star in that game. I think he was noticeable in the Columbus game. Now, look, I still don't think he's a regular. I will say that,
Sure.
but I think he's going to get more of a shot than I give him credit for, and I'll lead Crow on that and gladly do it. You know what? It's nice to have depth. Iron sharpens iron, Derek.
So
Why do you think
Welcome
John
to
has
the
me
show,
here?
by the way, you fucking derelict.
You said me and Daryl? What?
Derelict.
Oh, Daryl. I'm like, who's Daryl?
to
Here we
get
go
back to
again,
things,
John.
to get back to things, Casey brought up a point that I kind of want to spend a little bit more time on, where he was saying that Bobby Brink's competition might have been inferior compared to Forster's. So, Hoagie, I kind of wonder if it makes sense to then put Forster in against Vancouver and then put in Brink against Edmonton. So it's almost like you're giving them similar opportunities. Now, Edmonton and Ottawa are
and
not
Ottawa
the
are
same
completely
thing.
Two different.
But could you see justification in doing something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about this ever since I said it on the last episode that
You gotta find better things to think about, dude.
Well, it was stuck in my head. But the load management, I was like, oh, that was definitely a bad word for it. But I think just these matchup potentials with teams, I think will help see what players we have in Brink and Forster. I think putting Brink against Vancouver again will help him, keep working and keep doing what he does. With Forster, on the other hand, putting him up against like higher level competition, I think will help him unleash his offense as well. Saying, "Oh, well, that guy can do it. I know I can do that." Type of mentality.
Now, Derek, do you see a world where there's a game where they're both playing, or do you feel like it's got to be one or the other right now?
I definitely see a world in which they're both playing at the same time, but it's going to be because of an injury. It's tough right now to gauge who they would take a spot from, like one or the other, just because, they're going to be playing in a top 9 role. I don't foresee, and I mean, hell, Brink was on the top line the first game with Couturier, and I think it was Farabee.
Yeah. So. Yep.
Not saying that's going to stick by any means. At the beginning of the season, lines are going to change. They're fluid at this point, but yeah, I don't see that happening unless there's an injury, or if, we look at something where, both of these guys just start absolutely blowing the doors off the place and you can't refuse to play them both.
Right.
It's nice to be in that position, though. Like, think about it. Like, who was that guy that Fletcher kept pushing last year?
Hodgson.
Or Mayhew.
We're not picking guys off of waivers right now. We're not doing the Bellows game here. We actually have competent competition coming up through the system, which is what you want.
Yeah, homegrown talent.
Right. With legitimate potential.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Derek, we've been kind of talking about both games. We were kind of giving a good that we got, and Casey brought up Couturier and Atkinson. Hoagie kind of brought up just the young kids playing. I mean, aside from that, what's a good you could take away from these two games?
So much like Matt Casey eating crow with Bobby Brink, I'll eat my crow and say that Zamula actually had a pretty good game against Columbus. That was really encouraging, especially that pass breakup right as soon as they entered the zone. That spurned the 2-on-0 breakaway for Farabee and Couturier, ended up with a Farabee goal. Beautiful start to the play, and it wouldn't have happened if it weren't for Zamula and his active stick there. He had a pretty solid game that night. But again, that's that one game. But I like seeing that. I still, much like Matt Casey with Bobby Brink, don't see a world in which he's going to be, a world beater or a consistent mainstay in the lineup for that, for all intents and purposes. But good to see nonetheless.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that the three of you have kind of taken the good from these two games. Like,
there's only 3.
If you could really nitpick, I mean, if of all the people to score the first goal of the season, I was really excited. It was Joel Farabee. I mean, he is someone who's really got to turn it around and have just a standout year. So that was really encouraging to see. You know, and hopefully he can build off of that. But I think that if we kind of shift it, is there anything else positive we want to talk about?
I'd like to talk about something positive too. I think it is incredibly ironic and hilarious that Ivan Provorov's main gripe was the rim shots along the boards, and he got beat on the same exact play he bitched about twice, two times, not once, but twice.
I loved listening to the broadcast, the TV broadcast, and I'm not going to say it word for word, but the Flyers were on the power. No, the Columbus was on the power play, and Ivan Provorov was on it. And Jim Jackson was like, "Oh, Provorov's on the power play." He's like, something that he was unhappy with when he was with the Flyers, among other things.
Opted not to go with the rainbow tape today, Ivan Provorov. Hey, I'll bring up one more positive though, and Derek Fairpoint, like that. Like Provorov had a hilariously bad game.
That was good. I loved it.
But I would say the other positive, and I go both positive and negative on this, but I'll switch it to a positive, is that the fourth line is clearly a mainstay and something that this team is going to rely on.
It's an identity builder for sure.
Absolutely. And I think it makes, the Brinks, the Foresters, the Atkinsons, like the little and the younger guys who need this, like it allows them to stand a little bit taller. And, they're momentum changers. Now, again, I don't want to go too negative. Are we relying too much on them? It's a small sample size.
Sure.
They were on the ice a lot against Ottawa. But, I will say I'd rather have that versus like a bunch of AHL call-ups on the fourth line. Like we have a solid fourth line there.
Well, and kind of add to that, I think there's two things I want to talk about with the fourth line. One, boy, Paling has speed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
He is
fast. Love it.
Which is
great addition to the penalty kill.
But the other thing we have to talk about is the Hathaway hit or knee or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Where like, I don't know about you guys, but if Werenski doesn't get injured on that play,
non-call.
I don't even know if this is a fine. I mean,
you got fined what, $5,000?
It was the most he could.
Oh, I missed that.
The most he could get fined.
Yeah,
and it's the play.
He got the call right on the ice though.
Yeah,
that reverse was right.
Right.
They initially ruled it a major, and I was like, "Oh boy, like that's a bit severe."
But that's strategic, though. I think they do that.
They can review it.
So they can, and minor, okay. Like I'm still kind of on the fence about that, but like of the two options there, yes, I would much rather it be a minor than have it be a major penalty. So you win some, you lose some.
Casey, when you looked at it, did it look like intentional to you? Did it look dirty, or did it just look by circumstance?
I think it looked like a speed play, like a hard-hitting play, and it's unfortunate. Like Werenski obviously has had a lot of injury history, and I'm sure against some of that went into it. Who hurt him last year? Who did we get? Who got him?
Was it Pro? No, it wasn't Provorov. Who did get him last year? Would it be? I can't remember.
But look, I looked at it as a hard-hitting play. Now look, I can look at it from the other angle as well and just be like, yeah, that was a little dirty knee on knee. But like, you're not sitting there. I not that I played hockey at a high level, but playing sports even at a high school level, you're not like, I'm going to go injure this guy right now. It's split-second decisions that are going on. Right. So,
and first game of the year too.
A fine. All right, like I guess I can say you can deal with it, and Paling is going to have to, really struggle for the next for the next paycheck, I suppose. But I didn't see anything that drastically bad on it.
Right. And Hoagie, how about you? Any thoughts on it?
Not really. I don't even remember it, honestly. That's so far long ago that I just moved on from it.
Solid podcasting.
Great insight, Hoagie.
But I mean, I can say I remember watching it, but I was just like, that's nothing. That shouldn't even be a call. Because like Casey said, it's a split-second decision. Like, it's not like you're aiming to do that. And didn't Werenski like kind of turn into it too, in a way?
It looked like he was
it's
trying to
tough.
get his whole body out of the way, and like the one thing that couldn't get out of the way in time
Was the knee.
Well, his
Right.
whole leg, not just
Yeah.
the knee.
I hate to piss and moan about refs, but like you look at some like Couturier had a boarding call. I think it was either the third period or yesterday. I can't remember which one, but I was just like,
Chikrin, right?
oh, like come on, like
Yeah.
what are we really doing here?
Just
And
not
like
consistent.
it's I don't know. I feel like this is every single year. This time of year, it was like the refs, like, oh, they're calling so much, and because you're used to playoff hockey. Well, we're not, but yeah, most people are used to playoff hockey.
We're used to
where
watching
they
it.
let things go a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And Derek, any thoughts on this before we move on?
Nothing too much. I mean, it looked like Hathaway was in stride. Like, could he have moved his knee? Sure. Like,
Right.
of course, anybody could have. However, like, it looked like he was taking that stride with his, I believe it was his right leg, putting his knee in that position, and then it just happened to hit his knee. Like, it's unfortunate. I hope Werenski's okay. I don't think there was malicious intent. I think it was just bang, bang, it happened, and then hopefully I think they said he's only out for a couple games, and he's back in, and let's hope that he's all right.
Yeah. All right. So shifting to the bad, my favorite. So I'm going to go first because I had to go last, and I don't like that very much. But
Oh, so that's how hosting works. Okay.
well, no, I'm the captain, so I get to choose who goes first, and I'm going
Listen,
first.
along
I
for
am
the
the
ride.
captain
I'm
now.
the captain now.
Look at me. Look at me.
To me, it's the crickets from particular players, especially Frost and Tippett, where it's like, come on, we had so much momentum going into this season with you two. And I get it. It's 2 games and we can play that small sample size, but I would have loved to see something. And I don't know about you guys, but I really saw nothing from them. And I think you could add a few other players to that list, but I'm just going to stick with those 2 to give you guys something to talk about. But in order for this team to take the next step, those 2 have to take the next step.
So I 100% agree with you, and I will throw 2 other names in. I'll throw in Cates, and I'll throw in Farabee in there as well. Even though Farabee actually had some success, like not seeing enough.
Sure.
Now, here's where I'm like struggling with it. Were they successful? Were Frost and Tippett successful last year because so much more responsibility was put on them? And now all of a sudden it's like we have a 4th line that's doing a lot of the penalty killing and the grinding. We have Atkinson and Couturier that's relying on. It's like, have they faded back to the pack a little bit mentally? And I think that's where Torts really needs to start tightening the screws to be like,
And you know he will.
yo, you cannot do this. You guys cannot fade back to the pack, because Tippett in particular, like, is a dynamic player, but like you haven't seen anything from him. Frost, I would argue we saw one glimpse. I think there was one moment in yesterday's game where he threw a little move on and got a really nice shot off. I was like, whoa, okay.
Right.
There's creepy Frost with his mustache. Nice. And but I'm with
you.
you.
Should not be wearing a mustache. Should not have a mustache.
Like
It's like me.
Hoagie and Frost cannot have.
Listen, this comes off tonight.
I'm with you, John. That was my first and foremost. Like that scares me if they're falling back to the back.
Right. Derek, you were last time. So how about you? Well, you were second to last because I was last. But how about
I'll
you?
take
Bad.
it. It's all good. So, like, I don't know if I'd consider it like ultimately bad, but I was a little like off, not off, but I'm not on board completely with the fact that when they were running the power play against Ottawa, I think it was what it was. They had 2 guys below the line, and like I see the appeal to it. You know, you've got 2 guys that can control the puck, pass it behind the net if need be, try to confuse the goalie, whatever it might be. But in my mind, I want 4 guys out there because that gives you more opportunity for guys to drive the lane. That gives you more guys out there and more options that you can still catch the goalie off guard with a pass coming from behind him. So, like, I'm not going to say that's necessarily like, oh, no, don't ever do that again. But, like, until I see it work and until I see power play goals because of that type of structure on the power play, I'm not really on board with it.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Look at you getting all chalk talky.
I mean, hey, I just noticed it and I was just kind of like, that's like Jim Jackson actually was the one that brought it up. Like, oh, they're playing with a bit more of like an inquisitive tone, was like, oh, they're playing 2 guys below the line. And I'm like, huh, like that's kind of interesting. Like
that was on a 5-on-3 too, wasn't it?
I don't know.
What are you guys doing on with two guys below the line on with a 5-on-3?
Right. Even with one guy below the line, you're outnumbering them. So like play 4 above the line, and then you got one guy below that can look for the open guy driving the lane.
Right.
It's the whole Flyers and the power play thing. It's just like when you put the two together, it's
5 forwards,
mixed up frequency,
and the chip.
Right. It's like when you're playing Mario Kart, and then all of a sudden someone does one of those trick things on you, and you can't. You're like too short, or you can't see clearly. There's like a rain cloud over your head. It's like the Flyers on the power play.
Pretty much.
Hoagie, a bad for you, my friend.
I mean, we were just talking about the power play, and I'm gonna even put in the penalty kill too. I mean, we went 1 for 9 on the power play in our first 2 games. That's pretty trash.
It's not bad for the Flyers.
Yeah, but I mean,
We got one.
yay, you did it. And I mean, our penalty kills like 67%. That's pretty bad too. I don't know if that's due to goaltending or what, but I mean, Ottawa lit us up on the power play yesterday, so that kind of needs to get tightened up, especially once we start playing these offensively minded heavy teams like the Edmonton on Thursday. That's gonna come bite us in the butt.
Right. I mean, I think more of our weaknesses were exposed on Saturday than on Thursday. For
Yeah,
sure.
it was the come to Jesus moment.
Yeah. It's better to get that out of the way, game 2, as opposed to what was it? Put this Casey last year, like game 12, and then we went on a 10-game losing streak. So, Casey, I mean, you kind of hinted at a bad, but it wasn't like a full-fledged. It was more of like a cherry topper. Do you have another one?
Yeah, I got plenty of bads. No, Hoagie, I'm with you on the goaltending yesterday had me a little bit concerned, but it really did have to do with the penalty kill, and it's like you can't give up three shorthanded goals. Like you got to have a stop. I'll go the other direction though. In even strength, I think we were 9 shots after 2 periods yesterday.
Something like that. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Overall, like that's not an individual. That's not just a Cates or a Tippett or or a Farabee or who else? A Frost. Like that's a team systems kind of thing. And I'm pretty sure the team had a day off today, and I'm pretty positive they're skating tomorrow and practicing tomorrow. I just hope the systems get a little bit better from an offensive standpoint, because right now, like, you're not going to beat anybody getting 9 shots on goal. I don't care how many attempts you have, you got to get shots on goal. And to see single digits after 40 minutes is absolutely despicable. Right. And so I think overall, the offense, I'm expecting more from, because we're not going to be able to outscore the mistakes, but we got to be able to tilt that scale a little bit, because our defense isn't going to be doing us much favors this year.
Right. Well, and I think, and Derek, I'll kind of pitch this to you. I think that like this team is a team that needs to score by committee. And the last 2 games, it was kind of like we were counting on the same players to carry the offense, when it's just like, we don't have a good enough group of players to do that, period. Like if some other guys can't start stepping up, we are in for a long one.
Yeah, I mean, well, it boils down to, when you don't have a superstar, you need to score by committee. When you don't have an Austin Matthews who's going to average a hat trick over the first 2 games of the season, you're going to need to score by committee. Like if we had that, if 5 years from now it's Michkov, maybe, who knows? Like obviously that's looking a bit too far, but like we just don't have that right now. And that's okay.
We don't even have a 39-year-old John Tavares or whatever.
No, we don't. I mean, the best we've got right now would be a Sean Couturier or a Cam Atkinson, and both of which are question marks at this point regarding their health too. So whether the goals are going to come in bunches by multiple guys, whether someone's going to get hot and start averaging a goal a game, like it could be either or, but it's going to have to come by committee, or else this team is going to flounder, much like they did last year.
Right.
Can I throw one more out there?
Yeah.
I'll
pile it on.
I think
spread it on.
I think Andre looked really out of place yesterday.
Yeah.
I think the first or second goal, he got just plastered against the wall. He got pushed around. It's a small sample size. I get it. I don't want to, throw the book at the kid too quickly, but that was a tough showing for Emil Andre.
I mean, he's one to me where it's like, even when we kept him on the roster, I was like, are you sure playing him in the AHL first doesn't seem like the right idea? You know,
What are the rules now? It's like, what, you can play 10 game? Like, what?
no, that's like the CHL. That's a
Yeah.
whole different.
That's
yeah,
for
that would be like
rollovers.
that would be like if Oliver Bonk made the team, they could give him like
Oh,
a
got it,
7-game tryout. I mean, this they can just
before it
send
counts
Andre
against his
down.
ELC.
Right.
Yeah, I think they're gonna eventually just put Andre down in the AHL. It makes the most sense. I don't think he's
Doesn't
ready.
he have to go back to Sweden?
No.
I think no.
That was supposedly the deal in place, like he had to, but I mean, I don't think they.
But
We
It's
pulled
not
roster
mandatory to
rules. We
abide
pulled
by
roster
it.
rules. We're like, yeah, we're not going to do that now.
Suck it, Sweden. We've got him now.
Yeah, he can be sent down.
Okay.
I mean, at least I'm like 99.9% sure.
Yeah.
So let's shift a little bit and let's kind of specifically talk about the goaltending for just a minute or two, because I mean, I think that like we haven't really mentioned Carter Hart in the good or the bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured let's
We
just give him
saw both.
its own category. Yeah.
It's just meh.
So Hoagie, you're kind of the only person I haven't started with intentionally. But why don't we just start with you?
Tip,
So
you mean?
because this is an equal opportunity podcast and all.
Oh God.
So
John is not the first person to say that. I'll point that out.
I didn't mean that in a bad way.
Oh no, you're right.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, Hoagie shouldn't be so shocked that that's not the first time we've said it on here.
I mean, of all the things, that's what we're shocked came out of our mouths.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Check our Twitter sometimes.
so Hoagie, what are your thoughts on Carter Hart's first 2 games?
Look like the same old Carter Hart, honestly.
Man,
I mean, first game he looked pretty good. Obviously, Columbus doesn't really have a ton of firepower outside of Provorov, Johnny Gaudreau, and Patrick Laine. What?
Did you throw Provorov in with Line?
yeah.
You
Like,
did it
just-
so
I'm just throwing-
casually too.
Yeah.
Just throwing it in there as like, on their power play and stuff.
Boom Jenner.
Whatever. the top names for Columbus.
Jesus.
You got Lane and Johnny Hockey. Don't.
But you have to throw in there
Take this with
number one
Provorov.
D for Columbus.
I would have said Fantilli before I said Provorov.
Right.
Yeah,
Christ.
that's true. I forgot about the
Does that
kids.
sound like a pasta to you? A little Fantilli with meatballs.
Yeah, it is.
Fantilli and some
yeah.
vodka sauce.
Right, yeah. You get it fra diavolo.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
All right.
So I think it's spicy.
Oh,
Yeah, I
boy.
like that.
Right.
Caliente.
Spicy.
So was that it, Hoagie?
Yeah, I mean, he just looks meh at this point.
That's good. Okay, Casey.
Game 1, I was okay with it. I think he actually had some decent saves. Yesterday, Chikrin just kind of lit him up, man. I mean, some of those goals, like, yeah, they were good shots, but dude, you got to make a save. They're not coming in like, the Chuck goal was in close, but there were a handful of them that were outside the face-off circles that were going in, and nasty shots. I get it, but at some point, man, you need your goalie to step up and make a save.
Right.
Now, I'm not ready to like raise concerns at this point. Like, it's 2-game sample size. Let's see what happens. But you'd like to see him get a little bit sharper in the next coming week, assuming that what do we have, 3 games? Assuming he gets 2 of the 3 games.
Right.
Let's see what he can do. But I also want to caveat that I'm really concerned just about what's around him from a defensive standpoint as well.
Mhm.
Yep.
Oh yeah, because we've seen him with bad defenses in front of him, and he has a bad year.
Right.
Obviously.
What do you refer to, John? Or what do you refer to, Derek? 2020, 2021, 2022?
When has he had a good defense?
23?
Right. Like some years have been better, but by no means is it any good.
Back when we thought
honestly.
Phil Myers and Travis Sanheim were the second coming of
Desjardins and Terrien. No,
Derek,
I'm
go
not
ahead.
concerned. Like I'm not concerned. Like Matt Casey's point, it's a 2-game sample size. Now, if he comes out the next night, the next game when he gets to start, and it's a stinker, absolute stinker, Urson gets the next game. In my mind, hey, take some time, gather yourself. We're going to give Urson the start here. I'm still not concerned though. Like I get it. He can get into his own head sometimes. Sure. However, what goalie doesn't,
Right.
So it is what it is. You take the good and the bad with these goalies, with any goalie for that matter. Let him just recoup if he has another bad game, or if he rebounds, great. Give him another start, and then maybe give him a night off towards the end of the week, and call it what it is.
What's in your head?
So here's the thing, and maybe you think I'm crazy. Well, you probably think I'm crazy, but maybe it's just because
That ship has sailed.
This thought. Carter Hart to me is one of those goalies where it's like he has enough great moments for like when he has really dumb mother trucker moments. You're like, oh, but right. It's like there's always like an excuse to the play that just shouldn't keep happening anymore. And to me, like
Steve Mason moment.
There are only a few great goalies in the NHL. I think that there's a few more like really good goalies in the NHL, but I just think like Carter Hart at the end of the day is a mediocre goalie. I think that he'll have moments where he stands on his head and shines, and then he'll have the exact opposite. And I just don't see enough of like better moments than those other moments. And maybe blame it on the defense, but that's what we've got, guys.
Yeah.
Like that's what we have to work with, and I don't know when that's going to change. So am I concerned? No, and I don't really think I brought it up because I'm concerned. I just think like this is what you're going to get with Carter Hart moving forward. I don't really see it getting much better, where like I am hoping that someone else is able to step up.
I think the only way we're going to see Carter Hart for who he really is if he goes to a contender.
Right.
Because I don't think he's ever going to have a good defense in front of him in Philadelphia. I really don't.
But then one would say that it was the defense and not the goalie.
Well, can I piggyback on that and just say it's also the offense?
Sure.
When the offense is doing well, Carter Hart's doing well. It's the winning mentality. So when the offense isn't doing their job, the defense isn't doing their job, he just doesn't play as well, obviously. But I feel like you get him in front of a winning mentality with an all-star offense and a solid defense, he'll probably do really well. I mean,
like Goldberg, the goalie, can do really well in that scenario. But like,
we're talking about an NHL caliber goalie. We're not talking about Goldberg.
Freaking goaltending in Vegas when they won the Stanley Cup. Does anybody remember their names?
No. Wasn't Fleury on there for a little bit?
Aiden Ross.
Yeah, it was
Aiden Ross was their goalie last year.
Was it
How do you not
Aiden
know that?
Hill?
Aiden Hill. Sorry, Aiden Ross. Who am I thinking?
How did you not know it was Aiden
It was
Ross?
Aiden. Did you know it was even Aiden? You didn't even know the first name. At least I got half of it right.
Well, then I came back with the other half.
Oh, well, there we go. That's why we work so well.
I know,
together.
Derek. You've got 2 kids.
2 middle fingers for you, too. Al.
Speaking of a kid, when do we think Urson's getting his first start? This week, obviously?
This week.
I think this week. Yeah,
Who
this
you
week.
put him against?
I mean, well, so that's the thing, right? Let's segue into that. So this week we've got the Canucks on Tuesday. You've got the Oilers and then the Stars. All games at home? No, I think
Dallas is away.
Dallas is away. To me, it's the Canucks game.
I think they give Carter the Canucks game. I think they
opener.
Yeah, I think they give him the Canucks. I don't think you can give him Edmonton, so I think he gets Dallas. And I mean, Dallas is pretty good, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what are you going to do? Most teams are going to be better than the Flyers.
Right. Yeah, we can't really be like, when are we playing Arizona?
we have the Ducks the following weekend. If that's
from a competition standpoint, Vancouver makes the most sense, but
sure. But it's the home opener.
Yeah. I think you gotta play him, and also you gotta make it established that you're riding Carter. Yeah, let's be realistic here. Like he's gonna get a 3-to-1 start ratio if we're being honest here. And I also think there's more faith though that Torts has in Urson than he did ever in Sandstrom.
Yeah.
Torts openly was just like Sandstrom's not a good goaltender at the NHL level, and I think he has openly also said that Urson is good, and so I think we're going to see him get a little bit more run, and if Carter starts to falter, I wouldn't be shocked to see good old Sammy in there to pick up some slack.
Yeah, I honestly. I don't care. It's going to happen sometime this week. Why not Edmonton? Like, just let's see it. Why the hell not? In a season that we know isn't going to really be worth anything, this team isn't going to contend for a spot. Sorry, Hoagie, but put them against.
I'm not the only one saying it, so.
Well, I know you're not, but you're the only one on this show saying it. So I'm gonna.
I'm with Hoagie on this for the record. I think we are going to be competitive in March. I'm not saying we're going to. I'm not saying we are going to make a playoff spot, but I think we will play competitive games in March.
You know, it's like listening to, and I love listening to Flyers Daily, but it's like when you're Jason Martinez started running through the schedule and like opponents that the team that the Flyers like could match up well against. It's like freaking nobody,
right?
The maybe wins are against the bad teams.
Columbus, Arizona, Vancouver, and the Ducks. That's it.
San Jose.
Right there. San Jose. Sure.
I'm telling you, I'm not saying we're a playoff team. What I'm saying is we will be playing competitive hockey in March.
I hope you're right.
I think it's way too little too late.
No, I think they're floating in the bubble for wild card.
Which is a marked improvement from what we've seen over the last 2 years. And so I think that's like a realistic expectation. If we end up somehow getting there, like, wow, like, holy crap, that's amazing. I'm not anticipating it. Know who else hasn't been there in like 3 years is Ottawa.
Right.
And like,
right.
So it's tough. Like, it's tough to get there. I think that's the goal, is to be playing meaningful hockey after the trade deadline.
We'll be 15 points out of the wild card spot by the end of the year. I'll put it that way.
I just think, like, even if this team gets slightly better, like, look at the rest of the Eastern Conference.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have to beat somebody in order to get these wins. And it's like, you look at the Metro, and I think the only team we could be better than, or maybe I'll put two teams, are Columbus and the Islanders. And I think that you can make an argument that both those teams could easily be better than the Flyers.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at the Atlantic, Montreal. The rest of the Atlantic is going to be better than the Flyers. Maybe Detroit ends up having another stinker, but I think Ottawa's better, Buffalo's better, Florida's still good. I'm never counting out Boston.
Right.
You know, I don't care if Casey's their first line center. I'm still never counting out Boston. I agree with you, Casey, that I think this team is set up to potentially be better this year, but I just think the conference is too strong.
No doubt about it. Again, I'm not claiming playoff status here.
Right.
But at the same time, you got to play the games. And you know, you can only play the team in front of you. And right now, there's a lot of people overlooking the Flyers. And you know, we're way more in tune to this team than others. We see a ton of negatives, but there's also some positives in there that people aren't going to be factoring in. So, you know, you just got to see where it flies. You know, get to Christmas, see where you are in Christmas. If we haven't had a 10-game losing streak by Christmas, that's improvement. That's improvement.
That's a David Briere win right there.
You're not wrong.
And I hope you're right. My football season's over. So,
Oh, stop. Jesus Christ.
It's over. Moving on.
Oh, man, we lost to the Jets. We lost one game. Shut the hell up.
Come on, 5-1. Season's over.
Yeah.
So, one more thing I want to bring up.
Dallas
Speaking of,
Jets,
we were talking about crappy goalies. I don't know, or were we? But Cal Peterson, he got rocked me mama last night.
Oh, God.
Against
Wasn't also like 5-2.
He dropped a 5-burger.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Good call sending him down.
I can't believe he passed through waivers.
That's a
real, how does that happen?
Everybody
quite the contract LA gave that guy. Holy smokes.
He's just got to find his game, John. Once he finds his game, he's a stud.
Yeah, me too. Once I find my game.
playing in the AHL. I'll take
Yeah,
it.
his game is like a scavenger hunt in the Allegheny in the Allegheny area somewhere. Gotta find it.
All right. So before we kind of wrap things up, like we mentioned, we've got 2 home games. We've got the Canucks, we've got Edmonton, we've got Dallas. Let's run through some predictions here. We got 2 home, one on the road. Casey, we'll start with you. What are you thinking?
Oh God, I'm such a wuss. I'm gonna go 1-1-1.
Oh man,
Yeah, I'm such a wuss.
that was such a hoagie answer.
I know.
I even thought it as he said it too.
Of course you did.
If I'm being real, I think we end up taking the Canucks. I don't think we take Dallas. Edmonton, weirdly enough, we strangely matched up well against them last year.
We play him well. In the
We
Wells
play
Fargo
well.
game.
We play
Yeah.
well against them. And I think this is where, like, okay, you got Couturier and Mini Couturier and Noah Cates. Like, okay, you got 2 of the best players in the world on this team. Can you guys take them? Let's see.
Yep.
All right. So you're saying Canucks win, Edmonton overtime loss, Dallas loss.
Yeah.
All right, Hoagie.
I'm going 1-2 with the Vancouver win. I think they're just going to ride the high of what the city is going through right now with the Phillies. Obviously not the
Hey,
Eagles,
guys.
but still, I think there's going to just be a lot going through the
Doesn't
city.
the Eagles
Let me
loss
do it.
offset that though?
Don't shut up, Derek. You're still doing good.
All right. So Derek.
I'm going 1-2-0. I think they're dropping Vancouver. They're dropping the game to Vancouver, and I think they're going to beat Edmonton. But then they're going to drop an absolute stinker against Dallas.
Yeah. I just can't help thinking they're going to lose to Vancouver opening night.
Right.
And then Edmonton to
Set
me
the tone, baby. Set the tone.
Edmonton seems like one of those games where it's they win because it'd be like, oh, could we be? Could we
Right.
actually be good? Right? Like, doesn't it have
The fourth game in. Yep.
The teaser, that nice little teaser, like, okay, we're not
To
that
go back to
bad.
Hockey 500.
and just to be different, and I'm not actually sure if I actually think this is gonna happen, but they'll beat Dallas too. They're gonna ride it, and then it's like all of a sudden you've got Mondays with Meltzer on Flyers. Oh, this team, let me tell you. Oh.
You guys might not be seeing it, but I am. This team looks pretty damn good.
Right.
Do you think
Fingers crossed.
Tuesday night home opener, which, like, by the way, I mean, what time did that game finally start yesterday? It started at like 1:45. Like, it took friggin' forever. It was like Claude Giroux has 109 points. Bravo, or 100, 1,009 points. It's like, are we celebrating this guy every time he takes a step at this point? Like, come on. And
Against the Flyers, yeah, pretty much.
but like,
Look what
the
you guys
whole-
gave up.
The home opener ceremony is so brutal. And I think in general, it just takes the wind out of it. But I also think, like, because of everything else going on in that complex during that time, I think it's going to be a brutal environment. Like, I think it's going to suck for the Flyers.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, Tuesday night also, keep in mind, that's the same night that the Phillies are playing.
Yeah.
And then
That's what
there
what we're
was-
saying.
There's
Yeah.
And the Union are in.
there's
are in
a
Lincoln
football
Financial.
match.
yeah, there's soccer too.
Right.
So like that's, I mean, think about it.
Yeah,
Who'd you rather go see?
Right.
Yeah, you
I
go
mean,
to NL.
well,
Either you got lucky to get tickets to the NLCS game too.
Mhm.
You are more of a soccer fan than a Flyers fan, and then whoever's poor enough to go to the Flyers game, pretty much.
poor enough.
Jesus, man.
What, $20 probably?
I bought tickets. So I'm bringing my kids to the Black Friday game.
Mhm.
And holy shit. Like, it's a lot of money.
It's crazy.
And
It's
like,
a new
yeah,
era of orange, baby.
yeah, and then weirdly enough,
green.
like a guy at work was like, "Hey, if you want the box, you get out the box." I was like, "Mother."
All the
And
tickets.
so I'm waiting to see for those tickets to actually come in before I end up scalping the ones that I already bought. But like, if I end up getting the box, I'll be all right, kids. Like, you know what?
I'll take the box,
how-
Casey.
yeah.
Don't worry.
How
I'll
many
take it.
tickets?
I'll be down. I'll be
We'll
in
talk.
Philly that weekend.
We'll talk once we get off live stream here, but let me talk to you.
All right.
John gets the reference.
Dodge
then-
Street Union.
Conversely, I'm going to the Flyers Devils game in like December. It's like Tuesday night in December, and I was like, oh boy, like what are these? A couple friends that are Flyers fans, and tickets for the upper level are like $38. And I was like, God damn. But like down low, you know, you're getting your $100 seats, but I mean
Teats?
that
$100 teats?
$100 teats, huh? All right.
that Black Friday game really threw me for a loop from a price standpoint.
Yeah.
Like, all right, kids, it's ramen for the month.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoy the Flyers game.
All right. Well, I think on that note, we can put this baby to bed. Does anybody want to tell people where they can find him anymore? Is that still a thing?
Oh,
Everywhere.
No, you can't find us.
We're anywhere.
We've gone dark.
We're on
We're
the
no-
dark web.
We're
So
nowhere.
find us on
We're back on Podmuncher now.
We're only streaming on Podmuncher from the dark web.
find us on Truth Social.
We're on True Social. We're the top rated Flyers podcast on True Social.
We're on OF now too.
All right.
Oh
well,
God.
I think that's it. You
Yep,
can
that's
also
it.
find Hoagie on Grinder. Anyway, have a good night, everybody. Bye now.
Hoagies and Grindr.
Bye now.
Grindr.